Good morning. It's April 28th. It's Friday. I think we're all waiting for the weekend. But before you get there, I do want to talk about Visa and MasterCard. First, I want to head over to my Bloomberg screen to show you how they've been trading in the last year. So obviously, trends at Visa and MasterCard are important in understanding consumer and corporate health via spending trends. You can see it bottoming out here in September, October, and both of them really roaring until now, right? So you can see how they are very, very similar in how they trade. But I want to flag MasterCard for you, and that's here in blue. I'm going to highlight that to get there. And then that's versus Visa, which is in white. So, MasterCard reported a really strong first quarter, beating on the top and bottom lines. But the growth rates were pressured by higher client incentives and lower taxes from a year ago, FX, and also last year's Russia invasion. Over the past year, MasterCard's earning growth has been below Visa's. You wouldn't know that by the stock price chart, right? Because usually you would think one would be doing significantly better than the other. And usually when it happens, when somebody's performing better fundamentally than another person, you're going to see that relative out or underperformance of the two. But looking forward, what I'd say is I would expect for active management to be more important than 2022, when it was really about interest rates, inflation, what the Fed and central banks are doing around the world, which was moving securities more than any fundamentals. And so if you expect international markets like we do, where MasterCard is stronger to outperform US markets, where Visa has had a higher stake, then it could be time to shift horses. Plus, the elevated client incentives driven by deal activity won't be such a drag on growth. And FX also should reduce its impact in the second half of the year. So I'm going to get over to Longbow and look at some of the technical data and trends here. So here I'm showing you MasterCard on top, Visa here. I'm going to hit the KISS view for a second. And what do I see? MasterCard's nearing the top end of its range. So it's obviously not the time to be putting money in when you might be getting over that range. But I've got, from a short term, both of these are neutral, medium term bullish. And that's because, last year they were brought down with all companies that were either bucketed in financials, bucketed in infotech. So remember, these names switched from one bucket to the other. And you have some bearish asymmetry, but the low end of the trading range is moving higher. The high end of the trading range is moving higher. We've seen resiliency in the consumer spend. So again, going into a potential downturn, you do have to be careful with these names. But let's say you have to be invested. You should think about which horse you're betting on. I'm going to take it off the KISS view and take a look at some of these names. So MasterCard, obviously out of print, that you tend to get a little bit more price action. But I'm going to move it back to see kind of where are we right now. We've seen some buys and sells from insiders, very low short interest, and a beta of near 1. So again, you're kind of investing in the market at this point when you're getting into these. So you need to be careful from that standpoint. We're in the middle of our range. The range is still pretty narrow. If we bring it back, you had much wider variances in the trading range back in 2022. It's narrowed here. I think fundamentals are going to matter a little bit more. Obviously, they've had pretty solid financials, and international continues to do well. We've seen Asia, ex-China and ex-Japan, be pretty strong. And we think when the dollar's decelerating, EM will remain strong. And therefore, if you're thinking about which company to be betting on, you might prefer MasterCard. Let's head over to Visa. This is for the next one. Again, it's in the middle of its range. You can see much wider ranges here, just like MasterCard back in 2022. And smaller ranges, I'm just highlighting here, but we're closer to the low end of the trading range here on Visa. Nothing to do yet on either of these names, but what I would do is if I'm looking at these businesses, they're obviously really high quality businesses, great management teams, think about fundamentally which one you might prefer. We've given you some thoughts that we have. We have clients in both of these. But you think about which one you prefer and then be watching these trading ranges. So here for MasterCard, you'd be looking at the low end of 365.36. Visa, it's 226.67, and then be looking at the odds. You don't want to have it when it's, 8 to 1, odds. This one's more like 1 to 1 because it's in the middle of the range. But think about the macro, think about the fundamental, and then look at this tactical when you're putting your money to work. That's it for today. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you back on Monday.